If you only saw the final score, you missed the real story. Eala lost to Amanda Anisimova in 3 sets, but inside that loss was a warning sign. Anisimova had a 3-day plan. Alex ripped it up in the first set. Anisimova had 8 break points in one brutal game. Alex saved every one. Then, even in the final set, Alex still jumped ahead. So why did she fade? That answer changes how this loss feels. Because yes, Anisimova won the match. The score says 6-4, 4-6, 2-6. It says comeback. It says the higher-ranked player found a way through. And to be fair, she did. Anisimova deserves credit for staying calm after losing the first set, adjusting while the match was still moving, and finishing when the pressure finally turned her way. But the interesting part is what Anisimova had to survive before she got there. This was not a clean win where Alex looked overwhelmed by the stage. It was not a match where a young player started hot, then suddenly looked out of place once the favorite raised the level. For long stretches, Alex looked like the one asking the harder questions. She changed the rhythm. She made the ball come off her racket differently than expected. She forced Anisimova to think, not just hit. And after the match, the way Anisimova talked about Alex did not sound like routine politeness. She called her a great player. She called her such a fighter. She praised the clean ball striking, the way Alex thinks for herself on court, the way she keeps competing when the match gets uncomfortable. That kind of praise lands differently after a 3-set battle. Players say nice things all the time. That is part of the job. But when someone wins and still keeps talking about how difficult the opponent was, that usually means the scoreboard left something out. And this scoreboard left out a lot. Alex lost, but she left Cincinnati looking harder to prepare for. That is a dangerous place for a young player to be. Once opponents start respecting you before the match, studying your patterns, and building specific plans around stopping you, the easy surprise is gone. The tour is no longer asking, "Who is this player?" The tour is asking, "How do we handle her?" Anisimova already knew that. She did not walk into this match guessing. Her team reportedly spent 3 days studying Alex, watching her Washington run, paying close attention to the Naomi Osaka match, and trying to understand why she had become so uncomfortable to play during this stretch. That detail matters because it tells you how much Alex's status has shifted. Anisimova did not treat her like a random challenger. She treated her like a real assignment. And then the match started. Alex did not simply replay the version Anisimova had watched on tape. She did not hand over the same rhythm from Washington. After the first few games, she started changing the picture. Some balls came heavy, some came lower, some points asked for patience, others forced quick decisions. The match stopped looking like Anisimova was following a plan and started looking like she was solving a problem in real time. That difference is small. In tennis, it is everything. A prepared player wants the opening games to feel familiar. She wants the match to confirm what the video showed. She wants to recognize the patterns, settle into the reads, and build from there. Alex did the opposite. She made the tape feel old. That is the first reason this loss should not be read too simply. Alex did not win the first set because Anisimova gave it away. She won it because she created discomfort. She forced a top player to hesitate just enough, adjust just enough, and feel just enough pressure that the set slipped out of her hands. 6-4. That first set changed the mood. Suddenly, Anisimova was not dealing with a young player trying to hang around. She was dealing with someone who had taken the first set after her team had spent days preparing for exactly this challenge. Imagine that from the other side. You study someone for days. You think you know the shape of the match. You walk in ready for one version of Eala, and within the first set, she gives you another one. Not louder, not flashier, just different enough to make the plan less useful. And the moment that made all of it feel real was not only the set score. It was one game. One exhausting, stubborn, almost ridiculous game that felt like it had its own heartbeat. Every match has one game that tells you what the match really is. In this one, it was Game 5 of the first set. Not the final game. Not the last point. Not the moment Anisimova finally closed the door. The game that explained the emotional fight came much earlier, when the match was still deciding what kind of story it wanted to become. It lasted around 20 minutes. 13 deuces. 8 break points for Amanda Anisimova, and Alex saved every single one. That is the kind of game that does not just sit on the scoreboard. It gets into the nervous system of the match. You can feel it in the crowd. You can feel it in the player trying to break. You can feel it in the player serving. trying to survive one more pressure point without letting the whole set tilt away. For Anisimova, that game should have been the moment where she took control. She had done the work before the match. She had studied Alex. She had a clear idea of what kind of opponent she was facing. And now, in Game 5, she had chance after chance to turn that preparation into scoreboard pressure. One break point comes and goes, then another, then another. At some point, it stops feeling like a normal game. It becomes a question. How many chances does a top player need before the opponent finally cracks? Alex kept answering no. It will not tell you how hard she had to work, just to win the emotional argument of the match. Every time Alex saved a break point, the pressure moved a little. At first, the pressure is on the server. Alex is the one defending. Alex is the one trying not to lose serve. Alex is the one standing there with Anisimova leaning on her, asking the same question again and again. But when those chances keep disappearing, something strange happens. The player attacking starts feeling the weight too. You can almost hear the thought forming, what do I have to do to break her? That is when a hold of serve becomes more than a hold. It becomes resistance. It becomes a message. It becomes Alex telling Anisimova, without saying a word, you are going to have to earn everything from me. That is why Anisimova calling Alex a fighter after the match did not sound like a random compliment. That game gave the word a body. A lot of players compete hard when things are clean, when they are up, when the points are flowing, when the match gives them oxygen. But this was not clean. This was messy, long, uncomfortable, and exhausting. One loose swing could have handed over the set's momentum. Alex stayed in it. She did not look like someone asking the moment to be smaller. She looked like someone accepting how heavy it had become. That matters, because talent gets attention, but resistance gets remembered. Big shots make highlights. Long, ugly holds make opponents think about you later. The locker room notices who makes games feel expensive. It notices who turns one hold into a 20-minute argument. After Alex survived that game, the first set felt different. Anisimova was still dangerous. She still had the bigger name, the heavier experience, and the kind of power that can flip a match quickly. But Alex had made the court uncomfortable for her. She had taken away that early feeling of control. So when Alex eventually won the first set, 6-4, it did not feel like a lucky steal. It felt earned. She won it after absorbing pressure that could have broken the set open. She won it after forcing Anisimova to sit inside frustration. She won it after making a prepared player start searching for new answers. For a while, the whole match belonged to one question. Could Anisimova solve Alex before Alex ran away with the upset? And the longer the match went, the more you could see Anisimova looking for small openings. Not some dramatic reinvention, just little changes. A better read here. A cleaner contact point there. A more patient approach to the heavier balls coming off Alex's racket. A willingness to absorb the problem instead of trying to smash through it immediately. That is what experienced players do. They do not always panic when the first plan fails. They start building a second one while the match is still moving. Eventually, Anisimova found just enough. The second set did not erase what Alex had done. It showed why beating a player like Anisimova is different from scaring her. Scaring her is one job. Finishing her is another. That gap is where the match turned. Once Anisimova steadied herself, the pressure came back at Alex in a different form. The points started carrying a little more cost. The rallies asked more from her legs. The emotional high of the first set became something she had to protect instead of something she could ride. And this is where the easy version of the story gets it wrong. The easy version says Anisimova figured Alex out. The more honest version is more interesting. Anisimova survived long enough for Alex's body to start paying the bill. That is not an excuse. It is the shape of the match. You can give Anisimova full credit and still be honest about what happened. She adjusted. She stayed calm after dropping the first set. She handled the noise. She handled the frustration of that 20-minute game. She kept pushing until the match finally tilted toward her. That is what top players do. But Alex did not suddenly stop being dangerous in the second set. And she definitely did not disappear the moment the match went to a third. She opened the final set by going up 2-love. That detail is huge. If this were simply a story of Anisimova solving everything, Alex would not have created that opening. If this were a story of a young player getting exposed, she would not have come out in the third set and taken the first punch again. That 2-love lead tells you there was still tennis left in Alex. There was still belief. There was still enough bite in her game to make Anisimova uncomfortable one more time. But tennis can be cruel that way. Sometimes the level is still there in flashes, but the body can no longer hold it in place. And with Alex, the physical story was sitting right in front of everyone. 8 intense matches in 12 days, Toronto into Cincinnati, high-pressure crowds, long rallies, emotional matches, recovery windows that barely felt like recovery. Then add the visible tape on the shoulder, the thigh, and the elbow, and the last stretch starts to make more sense. That kind of schedule does not always break you at once. It does something quieter. It takes a little from each step, a little from each recovery, a little from each late swing, a little from the explosion you need when the match asks for one more push. Early in the match, adrenaline can cover a lot. The crowd can lift you. The challenge can sharpen you. The first set can almost hide the fatigue because everything feels urgent and alive. By the third set, there is nowhere to hide. The legs know, the shoulder knows, the little injuries know. And when Anisimova kept making Alex play one more ball, one more game, one more physical exchange, the match started shifting from who had the better ideas to who had more body left to execute them. That is why Anisimova outlasted her, fits better than Anisimova exposed her. Outlasting someone is not cheap. It still takes skill. It still takes nerve. It still takes the ability to keep your own level from cracking while the other player is making you uncomfortable. Anisimova earned the win because she stayed in the fight long enough to turn Alex's physical load into a real weakness. But for Alex, the painful part is also the promising part. Her game did not look too small for the match. Her body looked overloaded by the road that brought her there. That is a very different diagnosis. If a player loses because the level is not there, that is one problem. If a player loses because the level is there, but she cannot yet sustain it through a packed schedule against elite opposition, that points toward a different future. It points toward recovery. It points toward smarter scheduling. It points toward more physical durability. It points toward the kind of growth that can turn a 3-set loss into a match she closes next time. Maybe that is why this match feels so strange for Alex fans. It hurts because she was close enough to make you believe. She won the first set. She survived the marathon game. She led in the third. The upset was not imaginary. It was right there. Then the body hit the limit. That is frustrating. But it is also why people should pay attention. If Alex can make Anisimova work that hard while carrying that much mileage, the fully rested version becomes a much more uncomfortable question. And this is where the bigger shift begins. Alex is no longer the player. Opponents can lightly scout and hope to figure out on the fly. Not after Washington, not after Toronto, not after the crowds have started forming around her matches. Not after becoming a top 20 level player that other teams now have to circle on the draw. She is not the surprise anymore. She is the assignment. That line sounds cold, but it is actually the clearest sign of respect. When players study you harder, when coaches build cleaner plans, when weaknesses get hunted earlier, it means the locker room has decided you are real. And Alex still made Anisimova uncomfortable. That is the real shift. Some players are dangerous only when opponents underestimate them. Alex is starting to look dangerous even when opponents do the homework. You can see it in the shape of this match. The preparation did not survive the first set. The 20-minute game proved her nerve. The first set proved she could turn pressure into control. The 2-love lead in the third proved she still had one more opening even after Anisimova adjusted. The difference was not belief. The difference was what her body had left. That is why the reaction around Alex makes sense. People were not only talking about the score, they were talking about her court coverage, her willingness to attack, the way she does not look frightened by bigger names, and the way she keeps making matches physically and mentally uncomfortable. That is not hype, that is reputation. And reputation is a strange thing in tennis. It helps you because people respect you. It hurts you because nobody gives you the careless version of themselves anymore. You do not get many free surprises once the tour decides you are a real threat. So Alex's next challenge is not getting noticed. It is handling what comes after being noticed. For Alex fans, that should make the loss feel a little different, not painless. Nobody should pretend this one did not sting. When your player wins the first set, survives a marathon game, leads in the third, and still loses, that sits there for a while. But the frustration comes from how close she was, not from how far away she looked. That is the whole point. Eala did not lose because the stage swallowed her. She did not lose because Anisimova's level made her look out of place. She lost because Anisimova had the experience, the power, and the late-match stamina to keep pressing until Alex's physical load finally showed. That is a real loss, but it is not a dead end. Anisimova found out what other top players are going to find out soon. Alex does not always give you the same match you saw on tape. She can adjust. She can absorb pressure. She can make one service game feel like a test of patience. And even when she is carrying too many matches in too few days, she can still take a set from a player who came in ready for her. That is why Amanda's words mattered. Calling Alex a great player and such a fighter was not just a polite handshake in sentence form. It sounded like recognition, the kind that comes after you have felt the problem up close. So yes, Alex lost in Cincinnati. But the match made the next meeting more interesting, because now the tour has more tape, more notes, more reasons to prepare. And Alex has something too, a clear picture of what still needs to grow. The level is there, the fight is there, the ability to scare top players is already there. Now comes the harder part. Sustaining it. Through the second set. Through the third set. Through the schedule. Through the attention. Through the moment when the opponent adjusts and asks, "Can you do it again?" That is the question that follows Alex now. And if she was able to push Anisimova this far while overloaded, taped up, and coming off 8 intense matches in 12 days, then the fully recovered version of Alex Eala becomes a much more uncomfortable thought for the rest of the WTA. Maybe the real question after this match is not whether Alex belongs with these players. She does. The real question is, what happens when she gets another chance like this, with a fresher body, a cleaner runway, and the same fearless game that already made the winner sound like she had survived something dangerous? If you watched the match, tell me honestly, did this loss make you more worried about Alex, or more convinced that the breakthrough is getting closer?